Hello, I'm trying to play every game possible, and today we're looking at Diablo 4's closed beta. I was debating on releasing this video prior to playing the open beta, but I have so much I wanted to talk about I thought I'd just make it. I'm going to start the video by saying I'm a fairly large Diablo fan. I was gifted the Diablo II battle chest as a birthday present 1 year long ago and forever fell in love with the series. My community's name is even inspired by these games. During the closed beta, I managed to play through all 3 classes to their fullest and get a good gist of how everything works. Please note everything I'm going to talk about today could be changed come launch, as we have no idea how old the build that we're currently playing is. It's quite possible this is an older build of the game or one specifically made for beta purposes. However, I can only voice what I've played so far, so let's start with the obvious. While you watch this video with your eyeballs, you will notice a lot of skips, pauses, or rubber banding. That is not the video, that is simply the game. The beta has had an annoyance of server and increased RAM issues which cause a lot of random hiccups. This will most likely be cleared up by or shortly after release, so don't judge this part too harshly. Graphically, the game is gorgeous. There are so many little details that catch your eye while exploring. I constantly felt like a kid in a candy store. I just wanted to see and touch absolutely everything, which you can do to a degree, as there are a lot of collectibles about. You even create snow trails while walking through the denser snow areas, and since I'm a child at heart, you can probably guess what type of snow angel I immediately made. The shadows and tiny details heavily complement the surrounding world, making it feel even more alive than it already is. I spent a decent chunk of time just admiring the snow-covered steps, blood-soaked floors, and moss-covered walls, all the way down to the little lit candles, dirty old rugs, or dried up bones placed throughout. We also can't forget about the seemingly fair selection of gear, as this changes your character visually. They absolutely nailed the whole aesthetic, and this isn't really surprising. However, this might honestly be the best looking ARPG I've ever played. The art team did a phenomenal job. The same cannot be fully said for the UI, however. I will say visually it is very appealing, and they nailed the basics of it. The functionality of the UI is where it starts to fail, the biggest problem being the maps. Starting with the minimap, it simply is too small. The size of the map itself is okay, not preferred, but it's usable. The map is incredibly zoomed in, which provides absolutely nothing useful except what general direction your marked quest is located and if you're extremely close to a side quest or a shop. If this was its intended purpose, it does the job. However, I beg to differ. You are almost better off getting rid of the minimap altogether, as you'd be able to see further ahead of you. I'm sure ultra-wide monitor gamers will love this. I think a quick fix for this would be allowing us to have a zoom in or out feature, but for now we are forced to use the world map, which also looks great. I would prefer this over Diablo 3's waypoint map any day of the week. It takes up your entire screen, which is fine, but when a minimap is somewhat useless, we really need a middle ground, and this is not it. Once you accept a side quest, they will all appear on your map highlighted with the same blue color. This makes it harder at first glance to tell which quest is which. You can only seem to track 2 quests at any given time, one being main story and the other being a side quest of your choosing, which you'll have to look through the world map anyway. This is weird because the world map does not show if there are any side quests available in the world. This may have just been a beta bug for me, but assuming it's not, that isn't very helpful when side quests are extremely scattered and can reappear in previously located spots you wouldn't normally backtrack to. I also noticed they decided to not include the auto map. I highly doubt this was a missed feature, as every Diablo prior has had the overlaid map. I really hope this was taken out for beta purposes and we'll eventually see it come launch. If not, I'll leave my concerns here. Clans are back. I absolutely love this feature as it helps build smaller communities, or you can throw all your friends under one unique funny name. I will absolutely be trying to run my community's clan forward come release. If you're interested in joining us, stay tuned for launch, but I'm mentioning this for a reason. It is very annoying to get people in your clan. Once your clan is made, players must request to join it, which is fine. The leader must then accept that request. Once accepted, the player must now accept a confirmation invite to the clan. This is just an unneeded step. Have them request, press accept, done. I don't know why we need a third step of them accepting the invite after requesting it. It makes no sense to me. Now the emblems are set in place, which obviously is no problem at all, but takes away some of the fun creativity we could have with it. I would love to be able to overlap some of the emblems to create my own twisted shapes or patterns. I don't think they would ever add such a change, but it would be really cool to see. Moving on to the character design, it surprised me with how in-depth it actually was. I honestly think this part of the game will shock a lot of people, as it was completely unexpected even to me. They seem to have taken a more Path of Exile approach in regards to character design. You have to actually think about what you're doing. No smooth brain sailing here. You have to choose your own path of the class's skill tree, providing the base unique mechanics, abilities, and passives. Gear will be one of the most important aspects of your character's build, not only for the stats required, but legendary gear provides special affixes and even extra abilities to help you craft an even more powerful character. You can upgrade the gear pieces, mix, match, and even imprint the affixes, and on top of that, there's a whole Paragon board, which we currently don't know a whole lot about, but can assume will be full of extra passes. I absolutely love the depth of character design in just the beta, so I'm excited to see how builds will be created across the launch. I don't think the skill tree will have a must-pick build, as there's a lot of freedom on what you want to do. I do think people will quickly figure out and share their specific build combinations that may carry that class's endgame heavily. Now there's a lot of running, and at some point it feels like it takes forever to reach your destination, even with fast travel. Being an open world, I'm not really surprised, but your boots can affect your movement in more than one way. Not only can you get helpful fixes, some boots have the option to give you another dash or provide a movement speed buff after you dash. This is a nice little touch, and I preferred the movement speed after. I don't think this will mean as much once we have our mounts to get around, but for dungeons it will always be nice. The weaponry is quite unique. I started my experience with the Barbarian. The class has a total of 4 separate weapons he can equip at any given time. 2 one-handed weapons for dual wielding, 1 two-handed mace or hammer for heavy attacks, and 1 two-handed axe, sword, or polearm for slicing purposes. You cannot manually choose what weapon you are using. They are specifically set to your abilities. This makes you have to pay attention to what your abilities do so you can build around the type of playstyle you prefer to have with him. I found this extremely weird and uncomfortable at first, but you get used to it fairly quickly. By the end of the beta, I actually really enjoyed this mechanic. Gold is finally valuable and not at all meaningless. You use gold for upgrading gear, changing aspects, crafting, the whole 9 yards. It seems to put a lot of thought into gold and its value. Just like real life, gold is meant to be spent, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about hoarding, as you should be spending as much as possible to help you on your journey. I believe gold was also scaling to my level, so the further you progress, the more expensive things will become. It kind of feels like you'll always want more gold than you have, but enough to carry you forward. Now let's talk about the satanic elephants in the room. I said it before, but I'll say it again. We do not know when the build we're playing on was released. It could have been months ago, it could have been days ago. We don't know. We do, however, know it's not released. Okay, so starting with the price. It is on the more expensive side with it being a AAA title. As a Canadian, the cheapest option for me is $90, with the most expensive being $130, and that is without taxes. Games in general have been rising rapidly over the last year, and it's not going to stop here. The standard edition doesn't come with the premium battle pass or even 4 days early access to launch. However, it comes with a base game that was in development for over 5 years, frequent free updates, a cash shop, and premium battle pass that are both strictly only cosmetic rewards, as they promise to never include any pay-to-win aspects. I would surely hope not with this base price. That being said, skin shops and battle passes have just become the normal, as they provide so much extra profit for game companies. It's insane, and it would be dumb not to incorporate it into the franchise. You are not required to buy anything past the base game, which is fine. If you're a Diablo fan, I think we'll get our time and money's worth, but if you're someone who thinks they might not even reach the end of the campaign, I'd probably say wait for a sale to happen, or just don't bother at all. The only other downside I see to the pricing is once Diablo 4's expansions start coming around, we can probably assume they'll match these high prices. Scaling and overall general balancing is another giant elephant in this room. I could talk a lot about this, so instead I'm just going to rapid fire through most of the points I wrote down. The skill tree feels really off depending on the class you first play. It seems there's no general balancing between them, the skills, the passives, or damage numbers on them. A quick example of this would be Sork has one ability that does a base damage of around 300. That is already 20 times higher than any 2 skills the Barbarian could possibly equip to match. I'm over exaggerating a bit, but that's exactly how it feels. The level scaling felt horrible with some classes. The more you level up, the weaker you feel. Your character doesn't get stronger with each level up, but everything around you does. So now you're constantly trying to get better gear to keep up with the level scaling. There were not enough passes in the skill tree to compensate with the rapid growth of the mobs around you. However, this could change with the Paragon levels, we do not know. Group scaling is also a bit wonky. If you start grouping at the start of the expansion, it will be fine as you're leveling together. But if you were to become a higher level, let's say around 30, and eventually group up with a level 6, that level 6 will have an easier time 2-shotting a spider than it would take you 12-shotting it. Make it make sense. It's just overall a horrible experience to be put through, especially if you're not playing a class that has a lot of base damage. I managed to play Barbarian from start to finish before trying out this Sork, and they are not even comparable in any aspect. It makes you question if Sorceress is meant to be the base game experience and Barm is undertuned, or the other way around. I'm all up for being challenged until it's unfair. That being said, this is only Act 1 in a closed beta with limitations. We have absolutely no idea what the endgame is going to be like compared to what we're currently playing. Perhaps come release, the endgame will be different and put together nicely. Classes might have broken builds or be balanced in such a way every single person who touches the game will not play Sork. Who knows? Currently, dungeon mechanics are not exactly the best, assuming we're going to be running these dungeons over and over and over again. I'm not going to nitpick every single one, but I think the worst of them, which happens to be the longest, is one where you must go into separate large corridors on opposing sides to pick up a cube, go back to the main room with the cube, place it, and repeat this again on the other side before you're able to even see or attack the boss. It also doesn't help that it takes a good few seconds to pick up the cube, and if you're hit, will interrupt the cast, making you drop it to cast it again. These seem to be the only items in the game that are not an instant pickup, which is confusing and just felt like purposely prolonging of dungeons for no reason. The bosses inside these dungeons, however, absolutely hate melee characters. While playing a barb, you lose resource while not attacking, which means you lose even more damage than the nothingness you're already putting out. It makes boss fights go on forever and even forced me to change my playstyle at one point just to stand a chance. You're just being harassed constantly by auto attack mechanics that from my knowledge cannot even be dodged if you're within kissing distance of the enemy. Or the animations were just not being shown correctly, who knows. I hope barb will be better off come release, but currently the game's own mechanics put him at a huge disadvantage. There are no Blizzard cutscenes that we currently know of outside of the introduction trailer, and I'm slightly bummed about it. One of the best parts about Blizzard games is their cutscene crew has always done an absolutely amazing job at making them as epic and clean as possible. I'm not saying the in-game cutscenes are bad, by any means. I actually prefer them in most cases, but there are things that cannot be done in-game that would look so much better rendered out. They might sneak some in come launch though, who knows. The open world has a lot of collectibles and things to do while exploring for progression. Some of these collectibles I can see easily doing once and kinda never again, but now I'm thinking with seasonal characters. If we're forced to constantly recollect everything with each season, it will become an annoyance very quickly, which is yet another one of my concerns. We need a semi-fun reason to keep grinding, and cosmetics will only stretch so far if the journey there is extremely obnoxious to repeat. Sockets are a thing I thought I'd never look at differently, however you can simply just purchase a socket for any piece of gear you have equipped. On one hand, I absolutely love this idea, and again it makes gold and resources even more valuable. But on the other hand, I'm concerned it will ruin some of that inner fun of grinding for that perfect item, have it drop with the socket and stats you were praying for days. Why would I get excited for a weapon I can simply go buy an upgrade and extra socket for? Sag. Loot goblins are back. I absolutely love these little guys. I only managed to spot 3 during my time, and I have to say the noise they make is not obvious or loud enough at all. It doesn't have that D3 intense heart-racing moment. I never knew a goblin spawned until it was physically in front of me. Who knows how many I ran past because of this. They were all gold goblins, however, and my biggest question is if launch will include their families. If there's a rainbow goblin that can drop some fancy stuff, you already know where to find me grinding for weeks on end until I obtain it. To end on a much positive note, the open world aspect of having players come and go, I absolutely love. This isn't WoW, but teleporting back to town to see it alive with people or randomly stumbling across people on the same journey as you is such a nice, heartwarming feeling. I do hope this is ramped up come release, as I hardly saw anyone in the open world than I did the towns, but beautiful touch nonetheless. All in all, I'm extremely impressed. I went in with little expectations and it still managed to get me extremely excited even with its flaws. You need to understand this isn't PoE, nor is this even relatable to Immortal. Some very basic ARPG elements carried over from it, sure, but it's a completely different game. Don't let other people's comparisons ruin your whole mindset on the matter. At the very least, do your own research. I usually tend to avoid any type of news or media when I am about to play a game I am excited for, but it was a lot harder after the beta not to see a cesspool of negativity over the silliest things. I for one know I will be grinding the heck out of release. I even currently am planning to do a 100% completion series on the game. My life will be thrown away with this game, I can already tell. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts or concerns in the game down below. Consider supporting me on Patreon or by summoning the subscribe button to stay up to date on reviews, impressions, or Diablo release content. Most importantly, until next time, take care.